Good afternoon. Lieutenant Governor Roden, Mr. Speaker, members of the House and the Senate, and my fellow South Dakotans. Before I begin, I also want to thank my family for being here today. Brian, Cassidy, Kennedy, Kyle, and little Miss Addie are all sitting back there in the back gallery, and we also have Tanner with us today, who is dating Kennedy, so we'll find out soon if he wants to be a member of this family. But would you welcome them as well for me? I appreciate my family's support. Maybe the one guy in the room has got more pressure on him than I do, huh? I stand before you today honored to serve as governor of this great state. I'm honored because of what this state stands for. It stands for freedom, family, and fiscal responsibility. Now, fiscal responsibility is not just a talking point for us. It's how we do business. It is how we pay our bills. We plan for the future. We keep government small and effective. Since I've taken office, we've built on those commitments. We have a lot to be proud of here in South Dakota today. South Dakota's economy is growing. People are working, new residents are moving to our state. Our unemployment rate is 2.8%. We have the most job openings per unemployed resident of any state in the country. We have one of the very best business tax climates according to the Tax Foundation, and our state GDP growth consistently ranks among the highest in America. Both Moody's Analytics and WalletHub rank our economic recovery as the strongest in the country. South Dakota does have the strongest economy in America. This is our state's 133rd consecutive year with a balanced budget. We still have no personal income tax, we have no business tax, and again this year there will be no tax increases, as I've pledged to all of you. But know this, South Dakota is not successful because of our government. Government does not grow our crops or raise our livestock. Government does not run our businesses for us, and the government does not raise our children. What we have today is because of who we are and what we do and how we live our lives. Take a look at the last 2 years. During the pandemic, our state stood apart from the rest of the country. When they shut down, boarded up, and stayed indoors, we stayed open for business. That's not to say that we didn't take precautions during the pandemic. We certainly did. We take public health seriously here in South Dakota, but we also take freedom seriously. Freedom and individual responsibility. And part of that is recognizing that the dollars we'll discuss today are not ours. They belong to the people of South Dakota. The power belongs to the people, to the states, to our communities, and to our families. It is in each of us, every single individual. That is the genius of our federalist system. Our state motto says it best: under God, the people rule. And that brings us to the topic at hand, our state budget for the next fiscal year. And beyond that, we have choices that we're going to be making, priorities that we will set. Remember, there isn't a dollar that the government spends that doesn't come from somewhere. It's money that's taken from a paycheck or a small business or from a family farm. It's money that didn't get saved, it didn't get invested, it didn't create a new job, it didn't expand a business. That dollar spent won't be used to invest in a new product or to put food on the table or to put clothes on our kids' backs. Every dollar that we talk about today is a taxpayer dollar. We have a solemn obligation to our citizens. What we spend that money on, how we spend it, matters for today and for the generations into the future. So that's why the first thing that I'd like to talk about today is our state's revenue and how we're saving for the future. But before I get too far along, I want to thank someone who's been incredibly instrumental in keeping our budget in line over the years. Our Bureau of Finance and Management Commissioner, Liza Clark. During her 5 years as commissioner, we've grown our budget reserves by 95%. We funded important priorities and collaborated with partners across the state to care for people. We will miss having her on the team, and I'm sure that the legislators will miss her tenacious defense of fiscal responsibility. And I am so incredibly grateful for the long, long hours that she has put in over the last several years since I've been governor. She has had 3 times the amount of work a traditional commissioner would have because of the extra programs, extra requirements, extra audits, because of federal government responsibilities and accountability and extra dollars that have come in during the flooding and the pandemic of the last 3 years. So once again, give Liza and her team a round of applause and thank them for their service to the state of South Dakota. In 2020, before the pandemic even started, when I declared South Dakota open for business, we hadn't even closed our doors, and we haven't closed our doors since. According to the Department of Revenue, historically, the state's annual sales tax growth, our largest revenue source, averages about 5% a year. However, in fiscal year 2021, our state general fund revenues grew by 15.75%. Approximately $275 million. That's 3 years worth of revenue growth in 1 year. And the growth has not slowed down. Through the first 4 months of fiscal year 2022, ongoing general fund receipts are up another 7.3%. And total general fund receipts are up 11.4% above last year's historic numbers. We are projecting to have $215.5 million in one-time dollars for fiscal year 2022. We're projecting an additional $157.6 million in ongoing general funds. While these are signs that our economy is strong and thriving, there is something that we also have to remember as we look at these numbers. When revenue comes into a business, it's good news because people like the product that they're purchasing from that business. When a farm has more revenue, it's because they're growing more, they're raising more, producing more, or they have better markets. But when the state has more revenue, it's because the state's economy is doing better and the people and the businesses are out there spending more. We should all celebrate that our state is doing great, but it shouldn't be a celebration where bigger government is the result. So as South Dakota's revenue goes up, I want to make sure that we are only spending that revenue on necessary investments that benefit our people. Now there's another kind of revenue that's come into South Dakota this past year, and that is revenue that's not brought here in the traditional sense. It's a giant handout from Washington, D.C. Now that money isn't appearing out of thin air. Those are taxpayer dollars too. And it's money that's being borrowed from the future, from our children, our grandchildren, and beyond. I have had people ask me from time to time in the state, Christy, why don't you just give the federal money back? After all, it's the taxpayers' money. Well, that was my first thought too, to refuse the money. But here's the problem. Giving that money back means that the money will go to another state, to California, New Jersey, Illinois, maybe Michigan or Minnesota. That money is not going to go back into taxpayer pockets, and it's not going to go back to reduce the debt that this country has. It will be spent somewhere else other than South Dakota. It'll be incurred by the country, and our people will still suffer the consequences of that spending. There's something else about these dollars. That money that has already been spent in Washington, D.C. was sent to the state with strings attached. They put conditions on how we can spend it and how we must spend it. To the fullest extent that we can, we are going to put these funds to work for our state, to address our state's most pressing needs, to make fiscally responsible decisions, one-time expenditures that will not grow the government, but will instead save our people money in the long run. Washington could learn a lot about fiscal responsibility from watching how we operate and spend money in South Dakota. We have a strong track record of doing exactly that. Last year, in the face of the pandemic, we increased our savings from 10%, as is traditionally done, to 12% of the budget. Today, with inflation rising to unimaginable levels, our nation's future is even more uncertain. That's why today I'm proposing that we save more than 14% and put it into our budget reserve fund. Our economy in South Dakota is strong, but we don't live in a bubble. and it is up to us to brace for the future, to look beyond the horizon, and to prepare our state for what is coming next. Having strong reserves is an important part of that plan, but so is addressing other long-term challenges that are facing our state, our people, our infrastructure, and our public safety. I'd like to start today by talking about our workforce, the talented, hardworking women and men of South Dakota, the challenges that they are facing, and how we can help them be competitive in our ever-changing economy. Something pretty incredible happened in South Dakota in the last 2 years. There has been a dramatic increase in the amount of new residents that have come into our state. They're coming here for many reasons, but the main reasons are because we respect freedom. Our taxes are low, and we cut red tape so that people, businesses can succeed. We didn't shut down our economy, so it's strong. It's so strong, in fact, that we have about 28,000 open jobs, but not enough trained people to fill them. There are only 800 South Dakotans on continued unemployment claims, making us top 5 in the nation for the lowest unemployment rate. If we want our businesses to stay in South Dakota and to grow in South Dakota, we need qualified workers who can fill those jobs. But new folks who are coming to South Dakota to fill those jobs are running into a problem. A tight housing market is making it difficult for them to find a place to live. It isn't the government who should solve this problem. Instead, we need to find ways to help the free market step up and to solve this problem. So here's how we're going to accomplish that. Today, I'm announcing that $200 million investment from the state in workforce housing grants that will encompass $150 million of one-time state general funds. Those dollars will partner with $50 million in federal funds to be invested in sewer infrastructure tied to those workforce housing projects. Those dollars would be matched by local communities and developers to ensure that everyone works together in a partnership. A third of the money from the developers, a third from the cities and the area leaders, and a third from the state of South Dakota. This is $600 million in total investment in workforce housing. With this investment in housing, we will help free up our tight housing market. We'll open up new opportunities for more freedom-loving Americans to make their home right here in South Dakota. And we will accommodate businesses who want to move here as well. Now, we can't invest into our workforce without supporting the hard workers that we already have here, and that includes teachers. It includes state workers. It includes healthcare providers who take care of the rest of us. But like all Americans, they're suffering under the strain of horrifically high inflation stemming from the administration in Washington, D.C.'s policies. Today, I am announcing that my recommendation for a 6% pay increase for state workers, a 6% increase for state aid for education, and a 6% increase for our healthcare providers. Since I took office, our state has taken on unprecedented challenges. In 2019, we faced historic flooding that placed 63 of our 66 counties in federal disaster status. 2020 then brought us a COVID pandemic, among countless other challenges, and I think we can all agree that our healthcare and our frontline workers deserve our full support for their dedicated service these past 2 years. The funding increase to providers should go directly into those frontline workers. And our state employees have taken everything in stride. They've increased their workload dramatically, and they've continued to provide our constituents with the best service that is possible. The same can be said for educators. They adapt to challenges every single day. Our teachers are working with each student uniquely to prepare them for the future. School districts should invest the 6% increase directly into our teachers and into other district staff. This 6% increase, it is unprecedented, but it's also necessary. Many of these positions in these 3 areas are not keeping pace with their counterparts in the private sector or in other states as well. They deserve our support, so I recommend we give it to them. Now, housing is a big part of the workforce challenge, and there's another challenge that we need to address. It's one that's affecting workforce families, single mothers, and single fathers. That issue is childcare. For families who are struggling to make ends meet, daycare is the only way that they can ensure that they can work to put food on the table. The pandemic has caused a decrease in the number of registered daycare providers around the state. Washington, D.C. has a plan, but it'll make this problem much worse. It's more of the same from the big government crowd, more entitlements, never-ending government programs that do more harm than they do good in the long run. So let's do something better here in South Dakota. We already have some great examples to look at. I want to applaud the work of nonprofit groups like Compassion Childcare and the Boys and Girls Club. These groups are providing low-cost and affordable daycare options for young children and after-school programs for older youth. Through the use of federal funds, the Department of Social Services will use $100 million to provide grants for startup and existing daycare centers. This will allow high-quality child care facilities to open and to acing our center. We'll provide resources to employers who want to open their own child care centers for their employees, and will fund scholarships to train skilled child care workers. I know parents want the best for their children, but the answer isn't government bureaucrats taking care of their kids. Let's strengthen our existing daycare centers, help new providers enter into the business, and put more talented child care professionals out into the field. Now, more skills training is needed across the board as we look to increase our competitiveness with other states. It's also important for our children and our grandchildren who will be looking for new opportunities in the job market. I'm proud to announce today something that's truly going to be transformative for our state. I propose that we invest $30 million to facilitate new cybersecurity training programs at Dakota State University. Cybersecurity is an emerging, cutting-edge industry, but companies go where the talent is. So let's train that talent here in South Dakota and keep them here in cybersecurity. Let's give those companies a reason to locate here in our state. And let's equip our graduates with the skills that they need to compete for those six-figure salaries in cybersecurity companies right here in South Dakota. I'm also recommending an additional $17 million to enhance workforce training capacity at our technical colleges. These targeted projects will increase training for nurses, farmers, ranchers, manufacturers, even more. Now, not every single proposal in this budget comes with a major price tag. In many cases, we're able to promote low-cost programs that will have a big impact on small communities. These are some of them. And for those that are looking to start a new business or an enterprise at the University of South Dakota, I am proud to announce support for the Coyote Business Consulting Program. This dual-purpose program connects small business owners with business students who provide marketing and other services under the guidance of faculty. This program provides these services for free to small businesses across the state, but it also gives students valuable work experience that they can take with them into the job market. And additionally, to meet the needs of our healthcare industry, I'm recommending that we seek federal approval to fund construction projects at Northern State University and at Black Hills State University, and both of those schools will be expanding their nursing programs. The project at Northern State would fund facilities for a partnership with South Dakota State University's Accelerated Nursing Program. One powerful way that we can attract people to our state is by marketing what our state has to offer. That will help attract the visitors that we love and also the workforce talent that we truly do need. South Dakota is one of America's best kept secrets, but word is getting out. Part of the reason that our state is in the position that it's in today is because we've benefited from an increase in tourism. That has been a boon for some of our businesses. It has created new jobs. It has helped give us the resources to make investments that we're discussing today, and we need to tell the story of our state to help facilitate the kind of workforce development that we're looking to achieve. Our team at the Department of Tourism, they are the best. They truly are. They have won award after award for their marketing efforts, and we are going to empower them even more to keep delivering for the state of South Dakota. I am recommending in this budget that we invest $35 million in marketing efforts to be routed through the Department of Tourism. Now, these efforts will include traditional tourism campaigns, like you're familiar with. We'll promote our local communities, and we'll also promote Native American tourism and agritourism. We're going to ramp up our marketing efforts to highlight South Dakota's hunting and fishing opportunities, and we'll also provide grants to local destination marketing organizations. And on top of all this, we will increase our workforce marketing efforts too. Our state's #1 need is healthcare practitioners, and we recently partnered with our state's healthcare providers and systems to recruit more nurses to our state. We're going to continue to do that in other areas. You all saw the law enforcement recruitment plan that we put together and implemented with tremendous success. Let's continue that momentum across other careers and other fields. Now, we can't have a strong workforce if we don't have strong and healthy families. And so today, I'm announcing that I want to expand our Bright Start program statewide. It's been an overwhelming success for eligible mothers. That's why I would like you to endorse the program and continue to support it. Bright Start serves mothers in need by bringing nurses to their homes in the first year of a child's life after that child is born. You all know that I'm pro-life, but too often pro-lifers get falsely criticized for not caring about mothers and about their children after their child is born. As we get closer and closer to our goal of protecting every single unborn child, our pro-life focus should include programs like Bright Start that help set up families and mothers for success. Now, those nurses that are teaching these skills are instrumental in the care of the child, as well as the important developmental steps in those first few years. Bright Start is going to help more families get on the right path right away, because every single child's life matters, and we need to protect those lives in a smart way. Bright Start accomplishes that. I hope you'll support the program to go statewide. One of the fundamental roles of our government is to build and to maintain the infrastructure that is necessary for our society to function. Just like having a roof on a house or putting oil in a car, these are not optional expenses. Some of our infrastructure is aging and it needs to be updated and replaced. Some infrastructure needs to be built from scratch as well. These are investments that are going to last us a lifetime. As our state continues to grow, so does our need for access to clean and quality water. Thankfully, we now have the resources to make a $660 million investment, once-in-a-generation investment in water projects across the state with our combined resources, including state, federal, and local dollars. Those three entities combined will put $1.5 billion worth of investment into these projects. This necessary work will ensure that our small towns have clean drinking water. It will update existing water treatment facilities, replace outdated water systems in our older communities, and construct drainage projects for new communities. I know some of you feel really strongly about the particular water projects in your community. Routing this money through existing programs that we already have at the Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources, we can ensure that there's going to be a fair, objective, and impartial process to make the best use of the taxpayer dollars that we have. With these efforts, we're going to be able to provide clean water for our communities for years to come, even if they grow and they expand. And we'll be able to ensure the continued success of our agriculture industry and new industries as they move into our area, our communities, and our state. Other infrastructure. Other infrastructure that's incredibly important are our dams. We fixed a few of them last year, but they are one of the most essential forms of infrastructure that we have, especially for a state that has the mighty Missouri River running through it. We need dams that are strong and built to last. Unfortunately, the Richmond Dam that's up by Aberdeen is over 80 years old, and due to the risk of loss of life and property, I'm asking that we repair that. It is a top priority for Commissioner Ryan Bruner of School and Public Lands, and I'm recommending that we support that project at $6.5 million in funding to repair it. This will build on the investments that we made in our dam infrastructure over the past year. And additionally, I'm recommending that we take $5.6 million to repair public recreation areas damaged by the 2019 floods. In the case of Lake Alvin, that project is estimated to cost about $3 million, and it is at a risk of failure. We have the money available to get these crucial projects done, so we should do it. Having good infrastructure is about ensuring a high quality of life for South Dakotans. And we can't have a high quality of life that's not safeguarding public health. America has the most innovative and creative healthcare system in the world because we don't take a top-down approach to medicine. That's part of the reason why South Dakota trusted our people to exercise personal responsibility during the pandemic. But as healthcare continues to innovate and evolve, our public health lab needs to continue to do its work. I recommend that we seek federal approval and funds for $69.6 million to build and remodel our state public health lab. This money will come from the Federal Capital Projects Fund, which has tight strings on how it can be used, and it requires federal approval. The State Health Lab was crucial during the early days of the pandemic, and it's going to continue to be important. We all know that our state's great outdoors, including our parks, is one of the things that makes South Dakota the greatest state in the nation. Others from around the country are seeking the beauty of our parks. They're visiting our parks in record numbers, and that's good news for our small towns and for businesses that serve them. We want the people who live here in South Dakota to be able to enjoy our great places too. So that's why I'm recommending that we fund a nearly $10 million expansion at Custer State Park to create 175 new campsites. The best part about this investment is that the economic benefit and impact of this expansion is so great that the project will pay for itself in a little more than a decade. In the coming weeks, we're going to roll out several other improvements to enhance visitor experiences in our parks. And these investments will ensure South Dakotans can continue to enjoy these areas as more visitors and new residents come to our state. And in my budget proposal, there is a list of other infrastructure projects that will help make sure South Dakota protects our quality of life, our colleges, our state buildings, and our cultural centers. Please let me know if any of you have questions about any of these. But for right now, I'd like to turn your attention to public safety. Over the last 2 years, we have watched across the country as riots and violence hit different cities and communities. Businesses have been burned to the ground, police officers have been attacked, and it's happening everywhere. But thankfully, we haven't seen that kind of violence and rioting here in our state. Here in South Dakota, it's no accident that that doesn't happen. But it's because, in large part, because we respect our police and our law enforcement. We support them. We fund public safety. So let's continue that support for law enforcement by ensuring that they have the resources to do their job right. One of the ways that we can improve public safety over the long term is to look also at our Department of Corrections. It's no secret that the Department of Corrections needs improvement. Recently, we conducted a study that shows we need over $600 million worth of new construction and facility improvements. We also need to address our staff shortages within the department and within the prison system. I'm not going to ask you today for $600 million to build prisons, but I am asking that you save additional reserves for it in the future. We can get the ball rolling on several of these items that we highlighted today. For starters, we need to pay our correctional officers what they deserve. The 6% across-the-board increase for all state workers will surely help them out, but it's not enough to keep correctional pay competitive enough to recruit people into the profession. So I'm proposing an additional $2.1 million in targeted pay increases. This money is going to go directly into personnel, such as correctional officers, parole officers, and case managers. It will not go into administration. It will help us retain good officers and attract new professionals into the field. There are smart things that we can do today to keep our communities safer in the long run. I'm proposing that we use reserve funds to start addressing our prison facility needs. We know that most criminals who go to prison will be released one day after they serve their time. If they can find a job, it can reduce the chance that they recommit another crime. So that's why I'm recommending that we invest $28 million into a community work center for women in Rapid City. This will help incarcerated women learn the skills that they need to get a job, continue to contribute to society, and to avoid a life of crime, be closer to their families. Our judicial system also plays a vital role in our public safety efforts too. Sadly, our courtrooms have become targets. They become targets for violent criminals. And we are taking steps today to protect those who serve the public as dedicated members of the justice system. We are providing $5 million in funding for courthouse security. It's a priority of the Chief Justice, and I appreciate him being concerned about making sure that safety is upheld. It's another way that we can work to keep the public safe. And we're also investing $500,000 for justice and judge salary increases to fairly compensate them for their service to our state per the legislation that you all passed last year. Now, here's another way that we're going to strengthen our prison system. We aren't going to rely on them to be mental health counselors or holding centers. Too often when someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, they just end up in jail or in an emergency room. That doesn't help them, and it puts a strain on taxpayer dollars. We can take care of our individuals better. Let's do it by creating regional behavioral health centers to serve people in crisis statewide. Last year we funded such a project in Pennington County, and construction is underway at that facility. I am proposing $15 million in one-time money to construct more regional facilities across the state. We can do a better job helping people struggling with mental health. Our state will be safer and it will be healthier as a result. Now, for most of us, we depend on first responders when we're in our darkest hours, and we hope to never need their services. But in our most trying times, they answer the call. They put their lives on the line every single day to help others in need. Wherever you live, whatever you do, wherever you are, whatever the emergency is, they're there. And we want to ensure that every South Dakotan can be taken care of in an emergency. I'm recommending $24 million to fund a comprehensive reform proposal to our Department of Health and Public Safety to improve emergency services. A significant portion of this investment will go to support our emergency workers and bolster service in our rural areas. This proposal includes a series of investments to make much needed upgrades to first responder equipment, keep them on the cutting edge, new life-saving life pack machines for EMS, funding for mobile live fire burn units that can be used to train firefighters across the state, new equipment to fight wildfires, and a new coordinated campaign to recruit more volunteer firefighters. There are also things that we can do to be much more efficient, things that we can do across the state to provide more service to the people that live here. We will provide funding to create regional EMS services. We'll expand telehealth to EMS, emergency responders, so they can communicate with patients and hospitals. And this service will allow high-quality care to be given in critical situations. We'll be providing funding for mobile base offices to help with fire response. Unfortunately, as safe as South Dakota is, we're not immune from emerging threats that happen in our communities. Threats like human trafficking, drugs, crimes against children, Medicaid fraud, and cyber threats. In my budget, I am recommending a series of investments to confront those threats head-on. And that includes the creation of a human trafficking state coordinator to work under the Attorney General's office, funding for human trafficking training materials for law enforcement, the hiring of a specialist to work exclusively on cases involving missing or murdered Native Americans, a crime response vehicle for gathering and for securing evidence, the development of a Medicaid fraud data system, modernizing the state radio system that law enforcement uses to communicate, and replacing state radio towers in Redfield and White River, and modernization of the state IT system to ensure our citizens' data is safe and secure. And while we're taking those measures to prevent crimes from happening, to get predators off of our streets, we cannot and we will not forget the victims of those crimes. I am recommending that we appropriate more than $3 million in victim services grants to help those who are survivors of violent crimes. As the federal government has reduced that necessary funding, the state of South Dakota will step up and support our victims. Now, there's another line of defense I'd like to talk about today, and it is all of the men and the women who serve our country, especially in our South Dakota National Guard. Our South Dakota National Guard are the very best in the nation, and I'm not just saying that because I'm their commander-in-chief. For 4 years running, South Dakota Guard units have been nationally recognized as #1 in America for readiness capabilities, equipping Equipping and training these men and women to be prepared for every mission is a commitment that I made to them years ago. My budget maximizes federal matching funds to improve readiness capabilities for our Guard units. That includes improvements at the Wagner National Guard Readiness Center, the Sioux Falls Readiness Center, and the facilities in Rapid City. These investments ensure that our National Guard can continue to lead the nation through their service to our state and to our country. Now today, I've presented to you a high-level summary of my proposed budget, rather than covering every single detail with you. And you're welcome. If you would like to review all of those details, though, please read through the budget book. You can certainly get one right after we are done here today. The deck of slides that are attached to this presentation will also be on the Bureau of Finance and Management's website for you. In closing, I do want to share a quick story with all of you. Recently, I met with the Pennington County Sheriff, Kevin Tome. He introduced me to a class of new recruits that were training that day. It was absolutely incredible to visit with them for a little bit. More than half of that class were from out of state. The same thing happened earlier, not too long ago, when I was in Sioux Falls at a new officer graduation that I attended. Each of these newly dedicated law enforcement officers here in South Dakota had something special to say about our state. They moved to South Dakota because they wanted to live somewhere that still respected law enforcement. They wanted to live somewhere where they would be appreciated, where their families would be supported. That's something that we can all be proud of, and that says something about who we are as a people. We've always known we have a natural beauty on our landscape, that we have gifts and wildlife, and that there are people here that have good hearts that want to take care of each other. There's no doubt about that. South Dakota is one of the most beautiful places, and to me, the most beautiful place on earth. We have low taxes, some of the lowest in the country. We have the strongest economy. We have a great quality of life. We have tight-knit communities and good schools. But we also have something else, something that can't be calculated, something that is impossible to measure. We are a state that upholds freedom, that honors the principles that make America great. Principles that are being ignored. They're being torn down, they're being repealed and rewritten in other parts of the country. But that's not happening here, not in South Dakota. With this budget and with your support, we are going to continue to uphold those principles. We'll build a better state. We'll govern with fiscal responsibility. We will save for the future, and we will invest in our workforce. We're going to strengthen our infrastructure, and we will provide for public safety. We will continue on the path that makes us all proud to call South Dakota home. The path that convinced all of those new recruits and their families to choose South Dakota over every other one. The path that will continue to draw people to our small towns and our cities, drawn here because they want what we have. They want our quality of life, our community, and our freedom. So thank you for your time and for all of your hard work today and in the coming months. May God bless you and your families, and may God continue to bless the incredible great state of South Dakota.